Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Carrow Road, where Norwich City have made history this evening. They have become the first Canaries team to lose their opening five Carrow Road games of the campaign. A 1-0 defeat here to West Brom. More boos, more frustration, more disappointment, and probably bigger questions that are being thrown towards Liam Manning, towards that group of players, and probably towards some of those that were occupying that director's box tonight. And in truth, and this would be where I start really. This is probably the best Norwich have played here all season, to be honest, in terms of a performance. Now that's a very low bar, and it was by no means anywhere near the standard that they would need to reach in order to create a sustainable level of performance that will get them results consistently. But in terms of uh, performance and purely in terms of that, I think they can probably, well, it's Josh Griffiths really is the difference, isn't it, between us standing here and talking about, at the very least, a draw, some of the chances that they had late on to rescue this game. But, and this is the biggest point, when you perform like that and you don't get a point, you kind of balance out the performances, the Coventry, Stoke, probably get moved others as well, where they were fortunate to get points where they haven't got. So these things balance themselves out. But yeah, look, a really frustrating evening. I thought it was a game of pretty low quality throughout, to be honest. Felt like two teams that were not great and probably had the slow start that they've had. And West Brom have been able to nick it through really a defensive lap from Norwich City. Let's start then. It was three changes for the Canaries. Cordoba came in. Who else came in? That's where, that's where I am at the most. Cianats came in. Marcondes came in. Those were the three changes. Gibbs, Makama, and Medic all dropping out. A little bit surprised at Makama not playing, to be honest. But in terms of Cordoba, and we heard Johannes Oftorp speak about it a little bit, I could see the logic. They're trying to get a bit more control. They wanted to play with a higher line. And actually, in terms of that intent, that first half, that the opening 10 minutes of the game, it was there. They were trying to squeeze in. And again, I recognise this with the caveat throughout that it's been a low bar and that the performance wasn't great. So please look at it through that lens. When I'm talking about things being improved, I'm talking about the context of the opening 7 games that we've seen. Just to kind of make that point. So I thought the intent was better compared to Saturday and to Coventry and to Wrexham, where they spent a lot of those games in low blocks, kind of on the ropes, soaking up punch after punch after punch from their opponents. There was at least that intent and that want to play the game in the opponent's half. We haven't really seen that yet from Norwich City this season. When they were in possession, Kenny McLean tried to drop and create a back three. Sorry, it was quite David Wagner-esque, the shape that they created, a 3 or 2 and then a 5 with the wing backs pushed quite high. And they did that without really creating much. And the problem was, I think the ball got stuck when they were trying to play the ball into midfield. There was a static shape ahead of them. Just wasn't that spark or creativity. And how often have we said that this season? In the first half, really, the best opportunity they had was from a set piece that fell to Harry Darling that he just was unable to turn in. There was an Emi Marcondes shot as well. And West Brom scored with their only shot on target in the game when Ilong Jr. Stood up Callum Fisher 1v1, beats him on the outside, squares it. Kovacevic pushes it back into the box. Cordoba slices it. It falls for Josh Madger to put the ball in the back of the net. And from there, you could see West Brom's game plan. They were happy to sit, they were happy to soak, and they were happy to try and hit Norwich on the counter-attack. And the game state, to an extent, is probably why they haven't had another shot on target. But they defended well for the most part in that first half. Reduced spaces. It was reduced centrally. There wasn't a lot of options for Norwich to break centrally. And actually, the chances they were creating were largely coming from Jack Stacey on that right-hand side, being aggressive in his positioning with his pace. It felt like probably the only real pace that Norwich had in their team at that stage. And there was some dangerous crosses that West Brom managed to clear, be it last ditch or whatnot. Norwich aren't really in a position, I think, to be stood here tonight, probably bemoaning the performance and speaking about last ditch defending, given the way that they've approached the last few games. And like I say, they've taken points from places where they haven't deserved to take points. So in many ways, it's the opposite of that, where they've probably played enough for a draw and lost. Second half, again, I thought was quite sluggish in possession, and it wasn't really until, to be honest, the changes that were made. Mate Jurasek got brought on. There was Lucian Mahovo got brought on. Jovan Makama got brought on. And really, the last 20 minutes become quite desperate. Balls into the box, and they do create chances. Jovan Makama had a header at the back post that is an excellent save. Probably does everything right, gets it down into the ground. I think he's probably close enough, really, where if he looks up, he can just glance the header into the net. But it does what strikers are told to do, which is get it into the ground. And Griffiths makes a superb save around the post. And then the big chance really is a cross from the right. I think it was Stacey's cross that Topic flicks into Antti Sienats' path. And again, Griffiths produces a wonderful save. So, again, even though we're talking about an improved performance, we're talking probably about 3 chances. The Harry Darling one in the first half, Jovan Makama's one, and Antti Sienats. Mark Conde's had a brilliant free kick that was saved by Josh Griffiths as well. And he was outstanding, the West Brom goalkeeper tonight. And again, Norwich have had that in recent games. And West Brom then defended there. But to be honest, after that Sienats chance, Jurasek then blazed it over the bar. They didn't really look like scoring, and the confidence sapped out of this place, to be honest. It was an attendance of 24,000 here tonight. I think that probably sums up where the mood is at, to be honest. There's not a lot of optimism or hope in the air, particularly as we move on to what's next, and we'll get into that. And yeah, probably it took towards the last 20 minutes where Norwich really started to ask some questions, but that was less creativity, more set pieces, and more just trying to put the ball into the box to cause chaos. And they did that in part. But West Brom kind of saw this out, I think, in the way they would like. So yeah, look, we should be stood here tonight talking about a draw. Ultimately, we're not, and I think probably the booze and the final whistle, the frustration that I'm sure everyone, you guys at home, are feeling tonight is not really based on tonight. It's based on what we've seen in the opening 7 games. To lose all 5 of your first home games, obviously including that Carabao Cup defeat to Southampton, to be under par really in 4 of those, and a lot of tonight. I thought the first half, whilst it was probably the best Norwich have played, was pretty poor in terms of actually converting possession into chances. But at least there was a degree of competency on the ball where they could find teammates and they could string sequences together. Again, I recognise this is slim pickings, but this is where we are at the moment. That was an improvement on Saturday. And yeah, a bad night, a bad result. Another defeat does nothing for anybody really in terms of the mood around the place ahead of what is a very big game on Sunday. You compound that with the fact that Norwich lost Kenny McLean in the second half. Liam Manning has said a back issue, actually looked like he was rubbing his hamstring for parts of that second half. So I'd be shocked if we see him at Portman Road now on Sunday. And that's a major loss for Norwich City, right? To be without their captain, to be without somebody who in midfield they have struggled without generally. It was good, however, to see Lucien Mahova back. I thought he came in. There was one, I think he put the cross in for Makama, didn't he? Matej Jurasek put a couple of crosses in, and it was really those subs that ignited Norwich City's late surge, but it was a late surge, and it all felt quite desperate towards the end. But in terms of the territory, in terms of some of the stuff they did, it was a better performance from a very, very low bar. And to be honest, for the whole evening around both teams, it kind of felt like a mid-table affair. And clearly I recognise a lot of that will be West Brom and the game state that they created in terms of scoring and then soaking up a lot of pressure and defending really well and relying on their goalkeeper to make a flurry of good saves, which again is the way that Norwich City have extracted wins this season. And I think you've got to create really more than the free clear-cut opportunities they did, even though clearly one of those should have been taken. And I think Antti Sienats will be kicking himself. I'm not sure he did a lot wrong. Recognise there's that frustration, but I heard Ewan Roberts, or Chris Gorham told me that Ewan Roberts said that there wasn't a lot he could do, and I'm happy to bow down to Ewan's knowledge in terms of strikers in the penalty area and the shots that they had. So yeah, better, but from a very low bar, and we're not talking massive leaps and top 6 levels of performance. It was still pretty static, lacking creativity, all of the same issues that we had. Really, those opportunities came, as I said, from just balls into the box that caused chaos late on as Norwich searched for anything to drop in their path. They had a few opportunities, didn't take them. West Brom have got away from here with the 3 points. And of course, clearly the minds are focused. The frustrations are amplified by what is coming next and what is now on the horizon, which is a daunting trip to Portman Road on Sunday for the East Anglian derby and a 16-year record that Norwich City have on the line. And I think on the basis of these 8 games, there should be real concern and real worry that that's in serious jeopardy, because this is a group of players that haven't consistently performed enough, that haven't shown enough patterns of play, structures about what they're trying to be. They've defended last ditch well away from home. They've extracted points from places that their performances just have not merited. And they've got to go to Portman Road, where Ipswich have some really good individuals, are strong favourites for the game, irrespective of a really slow start to the campaign. And they've got to find something, because if they don't, then it's going to be very difficult, I think, for this fan base and the mood of this place to increase. And those questions, I fear, will turn into calls for people to go and to lose their jobs. And to be really clear, that's not something I want to see happen, that I think should happen. This football club has changed managers far too often. It's, again, you look at the strategy of the four managers and the styles of play, and I made this point on various places, the similarities really are, or the only similarities, they're points of difference. And Norwich can't get in a cycle where they're constantly churning head coaches. But the problem is, if these results don't change, if the performances don't change, we all know how football works, right? And I think Liam Manning is acutely aware of how it works as well. And this has not been the start that he wanted. Norwich's performances, whether tonight was better or not, have been so under par, and just not sustainable to getting results on a consistent basis. And when you have those often enough and you don't get results, it spells trouble for anybody. And I really fear that is ultimately where we're heading on Sunday, that it becomes a straight shootout. And of course, if Norwich can get it right, if they can go there, if they can, against all odds, show some character, find something from somewhere to come away with Portman Road with something, then maybe they can use that as a catalyst. But the issue is there's got to be performances, and there's got to be a performance. There's got to be something that ignites this, because it's bad at the moment in terms of the general trends and where the performance levels have been. Parked tonight, and I made this point on Saturday. You look at the numbers, the stats of it. We're not talking about a Norwich team that in a lot of those metrics are in mid-table. We're talking about a team that's kind of in the bottom 2, 3, maybe in the bottom 6 of the championship overall, and that's where they've performed. And tonight we can stand here and talk about an improved performance, but then you have to take that in the context of Stoke and Coventry, and the second half at Blackburn, and the second half at Portsmouth, and the Middlesbrough game here until they went down to 10 men, and barring a little burst in the first half, the Millwall game where they were second best as well. So you add all of those up, and the mood's not in a great place. And tonight, really, for me, was an opportunity for them to go into Sunday with some momentum, with some optimism, with some hope. And that's really kind of all you've got, to be honest, to cling on to, is the hope that it's a derby game, form can go out of the window, and silly things can happen. We saw it here last time, didn't we, when Ipswich came to Carrow Road and just really struggled to grip the occasion. But I think to rely on that on more than one, on a one-game basis is going to be difficult. I think what we've seen over the derby in the last 16 years, mostly, not always, is that the better team with the better players has won the game. And on this occasion, that is Ipswich. That being said, that was the case probably in the last 2 derbies, and they weren't able to do it. But I think that game, that hurdle that everyone's been looking at on Sunday, has amplified the tensions inside this place. It was flat in here tonight. Like you say, there was empty seats all over the place. And I think that, to be honest, that kind of sums up the feeling of where this is at, because what it was billed at as a top 6 mission, as a plug in and play, I guess, and where we should be able to see real improvement and progress. It's taken until game 8 where we've really seen a performance that, let's be honest, I think it's probably a stretch to say Norwich City should have won this game. I think they should have got a draw out of this game, and I think that probably would have been a fair reflection of the way the game has unfolded tonight. But it's such a low bar that we're talking about. It's not a team that looks anywhere near a top 6 level team, and the fear is, if results go against them now on Saturday, if they lose on Sunday, they could come out of that game and into the October international break not just with an East Anglian derby blemish and a defeat to soak up and everything that comes with that, but also they could be in the bottom 3 of the championship. That's a very real possibility, and it's hard to argue on the trends and the way the performances have been that that's kind of where they deserve to be after the opening 8 games of the season. So yeah, look, a really deflating night, the type of night that just takes the wind out of everyone's sails, I think. And yeah, you can sense the frustration in this place at full time. It was quite, and I don't blame fans for this, by the way, because I think fans have been generally fantastic. There was a spell in the second half here where they really got behind them. They really tried to create something, and again, probably just didn't quite get what they've deserved this season, where they have supplied atmosphere, they have supplied energy. They did when it was 3-2 here against Wrexham. They certainly did against Middlesbrough and Millwall. Southampton was dire, and they've just got 5 defeats to show for it, and that is not where this football club should be at home. I think Norwich lost 6 games in the Championship here all season last season, and they've lost 4 already, 5 including the cup game under Liam Manning, and that is a record that, unless it shifts, unless it changes, those questions, those calls from some are going to intensify. And of course, they're on everybody as well. I don't think it should just be about, it shouldn't be a Liam Manning debate. It should be a recruitment debate, a squad building debate. It should be a debate on some of these players as well. The lack of creativity in this squad is alarming in terms of, really, it felt like the goals tonight were going to come from set pieces, crosses. Jack Stacey, to be honest, that felt like their major outlet. I mean, we're talking about another game that's gone by where Josh Sargent had one moment in the first half where Antti Sienat slotted him through, and there was a slight block on the shot that took it through to the goalkeeper. Beyond that, Josh Sargent's not had a sniff all night. And it's just a team that, up until about 70 minutes in this game, never looked like scoring for all of the possession and the territory that they had. And it's not good at the moment. It's not a good place that they find themselves in, and it's probably the worst possible place they find themselves in ahead of Sunday. And I understand a lot of people of a yellow and green persuasion may end up sitting behind the sofa to watch that game and just peeking over the top every now and then. There needs to be a response. There needs to be something, because if there's not, then, as I said, those question marks are sadly going to turn into calls. And I don't think that's the right answer. I don't think that will fix anything. Certainly just another managerial change, because Chris Sutton wrote this in his column this morning, which you can go and read, and I think he's bang on. When four different managers who have all had success either before or are on the rise or up and coming. Liam Manning has had success at Bristol City, at Oxford, at MK Dons to a more lesser degree, barring that second season. At Lommel, first year, he's got a record for improving teams as they have gone on. He's a capable coach. He's highly thought of inside the game. Johannes Oftorup did some excellent work at Norgeland. Was highly rated within the game when he arrived at Norwich City. David Wagner, who clearly did what he did at Huddersfield, had a struggle at Schalke, to be fair, before he came to Norwich. Dean Smith, who again at Brentford was seen as a progressive. Aston Villa got them up out of the playoffs and into the Premier League with a very, very good squad. But again, they're four managers there with four different styles of play. It's a group of players that have kind of feel like they've been pushed together, and this can be the problem. I think sometimes with data-built projects is you can end up with a lot of individuals that on spreadsheets and on numbers look very good, but actually in terms of the way you build a squad, it needs to kind of have a little bit more substance. And I think there's too many areas where this Norwich group looks short. They look short out wide. They look short of creativity in central areas. They look short of variation in those two central midfield positions. That's where they are at the moment, and it feels, like I say, like that is a derby day that everyone is going into absolutely dreading, rather than maybe what it has been in the last few years. And God help them, I think is what you can say at this moment in time. And somehow they can get through it and find something, dig deep and find something to get out of where they're at, because it's a difficult spot at this moment in time. Pinker.com, of course, the place to go, and I appreciate you watching tonight. Leave me your comments and questions and everything, whatnot, and how many times I've touched my glasses and all of that good stuff in the comments below. I'll see you in Suffolk on Sunday. Gulp.